Hello everyone and welcome to this talk on what we didn't expect to learn in 2021. We are 4 Women, 4 Decades and my name is Natalie. In case this is the first time you're watching us, I'll introduce us. We have Bea who's here, Rachel and also Rebecca. And you might notice through the conversation that Bea is actually Rebecca's daughter. So if that comes up or if she says mum, then you'll know why. And we really are quite excited about this conversation because I think it's so important to talk about what we're learning and for it not to get forgotten, because life's busy, isn't it? And you kind of keep moving, but actually what are we learning? And the title of this, what we didn't expect to learn, feels really appropriate because the things we're going to talk about are not things we went on a mission out to discover, but through the topsy-turvy year we've had, there've been important things for us to just take on board to help us navigate challenging times. And so I think that probably is enough said for us to launch in and have a good natter about what we've been learning.
Thank you, Natalie. So I guess I'd like to kick off with talking about one of the things that I didn't expect to learn so much about was the importance of rest this year. And I think that, I mean, that's the subject that we talk the most about probably in our WhatsApp group, isn't it? Have we rested? Because, and in fact, let me read you something that popped up on Instagram the other day that really resonated with me. The reasons why we find resting can feel hard. You believe that you have to earn downtime. Your self-worth feels dependent on being productive. You keep busy to avoid difficult feelings. You grew up in a household that saw rest as laziness. You believe that you'll only be happy when you get there. You feel judged by others when you rest. Now, not all of those, but the majority of those resonated with me. And I know that I have learned so much about the importance and the value of rest this year. And that's rest for rest's sake and not rest to then do. And I think we underestimate the amount of rest that we need. There's something that just popped in my head, which was something that I've spoken about before and recently recorded a video on it for the work that Bea and I do around recovery. And that's a friend said to me a number of years ago now, probably over a decade ago, when I was really struggling. And she said, take exquisite care of yourself. And it stayed with me, that word exquisite. And I think for me, what I see now as well is using that around this idea, this desire, this need for rest. And I think, and I know I'm a doer a lot of the time. So for me, resting might be sitting, doing my knitting. You know, I said to Bea the other night, Bea's staying with me at the moment, and we were watching some TV, but it's like I need to be doing, and I didn't have anything to do with my hands, you know, while I was watching TV. And I kind of realized that that's not resting in a way. And sometimes it does feel like rest, you know, the knitting or the whatever, but actually just seeing that this is so important so that we're not literally running on an empty tank, which I think COVID this year, I mean, gosh, we thought last year was tough, 2020, but this year I think has just taken it to another level. Certainly I feel that. So yeah, rest, that was a big one for me. What about you?
There's such a shift from the constant state of doing to being. And that's something I feel like we've talked about quite a lot.
Mm.
Just allowing ourselves to be and actually exploring, like, what does that actually mean? That, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to mean kind of just I don't know, sitting in an empty room staring at a wall, but actually, like, what does that it feels like a real gear change from doing to being. Because I think for me, certainly, so much of that is about returning to the present. I mean, yeah, this year has been nuts. The last couple of years have been nuts, and my inner critic, mad woman in the attic, has been having an absolute field day, kind of all the time. And the natural instinct is to listen to that and to pay attention and to feel like we have to obey this sort of urge to do more, to be more productive, to put more things out in the world, to see more people, visit more friends, like more, get more stuff, earn more money, all of that, rather than kind of relaxing back into what's here, right now. And like, one of the big learnings for me, which this kind of ties into, is allowing the unfolding. And it's something that I have actually got a print of, and I've bought a frame, and I'm going to stick it in a frame because it feels so important to me. This idea of kind of letting go a bit more. Like, for me, this has been a big year of change. I mean, one of the things is that I left my job in the civil service to go self-employed. And when I did that, I didn't start off with a big business plan with kind of detailed breakdown of what I'd be doing every day, every month. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I would have never predicted all the stuff that's happened since then. And we can be so focused on the next thing, on the plan, on the shoulds, what we should be doing, what we feel like we should be doing, that we kind of close ourselves off to opportunities, things that come out of nowhere. And I was kind of scribbling down some notes just now, and the words that come up are resist less, do less, allow, and embrace. And this is stuff that I am definitely still learning and still trying to kind of drill in, because I lose sight of it all the time. And I try, and the more discomfort I experience, the more I try to kind of grip onto the reins of life, as it were, try and control more, try and predict more. But actually, that's complete opposite of what we should actually be doing. And it's like trusting the process, trusting that what will happen will happen, what needs to unfold will unfold. And actually, the less we meddle in that, the better. Because I think as we interfere so much, don't we? I think this is something that all four of us have seen more, and are kind of continuing to see more. But yeah, for me, that's a big one. Hence the print in a frame, which is going to go on my wall.
I love how every time B speaks, because I know the other three and I know their faces so well, mine, we just all go, oh yeah. And it's so nice just to go, God, how does she know this much? But it's a really interesting, I kind of have been learning from B, from the others, and this whole year, about rest and letting go and allowing, and words that I wouldn't have said to you 2 years ago, being the slightly more uptight, possibly more corporate background one. I don't know, like there's just more of an edge to me that you have to soften, I think, before you get to a B level of wisdom and joy that we've just experienced listening to. But what I found this year in particular, two things, what seems to be coming out in work with clients and in business is we tend to, and I know women on the call and men on the call making these moves, but we tend to move around in career or perhaps put our hand up for new job opportunities. And in that sense, I've been working with clients to say, okay, well, this new thing that you're about to embark upon is different to what you have done before. And therefore, let's sensibly look at your ways of working that have served you to date. And let's find out which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to drop or revive or revamp to serve you in this new role, to serve you in this new place. And then the other side to the coin that I'm learning is, just do less all the time, every day. And that actually, yes, give up some ways of working that have really established you and who you are in your working sense. But actually, the less we worry about it, the less we try, it all works itself out anyway, to B's point. So I kind of am wrestling. That's what I'm learning at the moment, is how do you balance these two things? One is, as a professional, I want to continue to look at how I do the stuff and what works for me and what doesn't. But then I flip the coin over and I'm like, oh, actually, none of that matters. I just want a cup of tea and a good chat with you good people. So it's really interesting to know what to do first. But the rest thing that Rebecca talked about, the rest is, I think Glennon Doyle said that the revolution is, show me a rested woman. Show me rested human beings who have realized that there is a need to charge the battery of the human being before they go into their day. As we would charge a phone, as we would fill up a car with fuel, as we would give our children food before they leave the house. Let's all be doing that on a very regular basis. Do I have enough energy to go into the next thing I'm going to do? And I promise you, everybody on this call is not regularly saying, do I have enough energy to do the next hour of my life? And that, I think, is where the work is and where the learning is, for me anyway, going forward.
It's something that I've been working with clients with as well, is this rest, is really encouraging them to rest. And I love it when they message me to say, oh my God, I had 10 hours sleep last night. And I said, and you're just scratching the surface. And but to see people waking up to the realization of, oh, I didn't even notice that I was so low in fuel. We just don't see it because we're literally, and with everything that's been going on this year, no wonder we're exhausted. No wonder we feel on our knees a lot of the time. So that's something we have to prioritize. And I know that we struggle with it. And I know women particularly struggle with it. As I read out from that thing that I'd seen, growing up in a house where rest was seen as lazy. Or what will people think if I say, yeah, I've just had an afternoon nap, or I'm going to have an afternoon nap? It's like, well, that's all right for you then, isn't it? Kind of thing, So it's a tough one. And I think we have to be so boundaried around it. And who knows, it's a bit like that wonderful Marianne Williamson quote where, when we let our own light shine, we unconsciously let others do the same. We liberate others. So I wonder if we model that then we teach others to do the same.
I've been doing some things this year that, so rest has been important, and I've been trying to flip the way I approach it, and I'm not succeeding much of the time, but not resting in order to do more, but just resting for resting's sake, and actually seeing that actually how am I fueling myself, before I even start. But there's some things I've done that have reduced the efforting that goes on, which is still which isn't complete rest, but is really helping. So there's been some, you know, I do less email than I ever used to. I used to really be a slave to emails. And I'm just learning that actually the world doesn't crumble if I don't reply straight away, like really simple stuff like that. And actually I can delete ones or unsubscribe from things that aren't as important. And so far, so good. And being less apologetic when I am, you know, just saying thanks for your patience instead of apologies all the time. I'm still learning that. There's one thing I really wanted to share on this call that I didn't expect to learn this year is that being myself is my superpower. It's like, for me, has been just so huge, like huge. And I think it also falls in line with this piece around rest, not in that I'm resting when I'm being myself, but it's a different experience. It's more effortless. It's authentic. It's without lies. It's without masks. It's fluid. It's natural. It's me. And it makes me tingly just to share it because it feels quite transformational. And I thank you, ladies, for helping me see that, because I think it's in sharing what we struggle with and sharing what we're learning and sharing our intentions or how we'd like to be in the world, that we get to see things that are our blind spots that we maybe didn't spot. And the thing is, I think this is true for everyone, like whatever you've got going on for you, your personal magic is your superpower. We just so get insecure about ourselves and compare and try and act in ways that we think we ought to in order to be accepted in the world. And I probably didn't value what I naturally brought because it came effortlessly. I didn't see the value in it. And I now see, starting to see, and enough for me to see more and know it's important, that yeah, what we bring naturally is a gift, and not to try and dilute or be different. So yeah, so I turned my Natalie dial up, and believe it or not, the more I am more natural to who I am and show up in a way which just feels authentic and right, I seem to be seeing it's having better results. Not that I'm doing it for results. It's like the opposite of why I'm doing it, because I'm tired and I can't be bothered to lie anymore. But actually, it's a winning formula and it's more restful. So key message from me, and what I want to see more of in 22 is being me, like. And so I have my own, like, be more Natalie hashtag. And that'll be, you know, be more Rachel, be more Jessica, be more Angie, be more Rebecca, you know, and it goes on. So, yeah.
Natalie, does it feel like a kind of letting go?
Yes. Yeah, it does feel like letting go. It feels like a layer of insecurity, a layer of not good enoughness that was fueling any behavior that was different to me. It feels like there's something that's been shedded, which is so freeing.
I love that so much, because it's like, it's just such a reminder that that is our default state. That actually we don't need to go out and like become this better version of ourselves, that actually that is fundamentally who we are at our core, and then everything else on top of that is learnt, inherited, absorbed from all the information and expectations that we're exposed to. So it's, yeah, I love that kind of returning to ourselves. It feels like, even just like hearing you talk, it just feels lighter.
Yeah, it feels lighter, and that's why it kind of linked into the rest somehow, even though it's not, it's not rest, but there's something that's more at peace with it, which doesn't grate. And I find myself having less tolerance for inauthenticity in myself and others. And I think when I show up as more me with less layers and interference, then it gives permission for others to do the same, and for more honest conversations to evolve.
It's interesting because I think like a previous version of me would, on listening to you say that, I would be filled with terror and fear, because it then hands it over to the mad woman, the attic, the inner critic, to then say, yeah, but people don't want to see the real version of you. Yeah, but what if you're not accepted? Yeah, but what if, like, all of these things, all of that insecurity, which I think gets in the way for a lot of us. That's that extra layer that you're shedding. And like, for me, one of the other things I've learned this year, which really ties in with this, is about embracing vulnerability. And actually, I think I might have said this on a previous talk, that vulnerability and embracing that feels like my superpower that I've found and discovered this year. And I think it's really similar, because it's also about letting go of that mask. It's letting go of expectations. It's like a relaxing into who I am in each moment. And I used to have kind of crippling anxiety. I would avoid so many things because I didn't want to feel anxious. Whereas and I think a lot of that was because I was worried that I wasn't going to perform, or I was going to fall short of expectations, or it wasn't going to be what people wanted. Whereas now, and this is genuinely what I do, I just say, oh, I can just be vulnerable. And I feel like that's quite a similar thing to yours, Nat. It's like, oh, I can just be myself. Like, no more pretenses, no more lies, no more masks. And I feel like that's where real connection comes as well, that people can really feel that you're kind of connecting on a different level. And I think that's been massive for me, but I think is like quite similar to yours, Natalie.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think we've probably all written things that look separate, different, but they're all linking up together, aren't they? Because one of the other things that I've written about that kind of merges into all of that is two things, really. One of them I'd written down, the illusion of control, where, and this year has shown us that we have no control. And how that gets in the way when we think, as Bea said at the start about this gripping the reins. We think we're in control. And what you said, Natalie, about now showing up as yourself. Before it would have been, oh, but I've got to put this mask on and I've got to be, this version of myself to show the world. But I think I've certainly learned this, and I'm learning it right now, because I'm due to go to the US in 10 days time. And so with the new strain, I don't know whether that's going to happen. I'm hoping to goodness that it is, but I have no control. So there is no value in trying to control something, even worrying about it or having anxiety about it, because it will be what it will be. So for me, that leads into, again, a letting go. Oh, I don't have, there's no point in worrying about that. So I can take that off my plate. And instead, what I will turn towards is, how do I want to live this life? How do I want to show up and be? And again, it's what you guys have already said, without dragging that weight of, oh, but everything's got to be like this and it's got to look like that, and I'll be happy when kind of thing. It's just seeing more and more. And for me, what I find is that if anything, if we're talking about superpowers, for me, it's the word that comes up for me is my peace. And I find, in fact, I was recording a video the other day, and when I played it back, I thought, goodness me, I was talking slowly. But that felt absolutely right. So I feel I've slowed down this year, moving away from the control to actually, just slowing down in everything. And that feels that I am then more present and more open and notice more things. There's a beautiful story that I think it was Tara Brach, a mindfulness teacher, talked about. A Buddhist monk was asked why he meditated every day. And his response was, so that when I walk into the village every afternoon, I'll see the purple flowers. I'll notice the purple flowers. And that's true. That's something that I see so profoundly, is that this letting go of that, any belief that we have any control, to slowing down so that we notice life around us.
I think one of the things that opened this conversation up quite a lot for the four of us are things like what we read, but also our conversations over the last 6 months about letting go, but letting go of perhaps pictures that had formed in our heads about how things should look. And so one of the things I wrote down was just to not attach to the picture in the first place. And if I have attached, then to let go as soon as possible. And I think some of the pictures that we all held have beautifully burnt to the ground this year because of the lack of control and because of not knowing. So things like, I've been looking for a house for a while, and in doing that, I had an image in my head of what that house would mean. And I found, I could have found a house and really just gone for that one property. And actually, that picture, I let go of that picture and instead kind of went for, I would hope that I would have a house that looks and feels a bit like that, rather than I want that house. And it's the same with job, and it's the same with relationship and friendship. It's like, I want my people to behave with me in this way, rather than I hope that all people I interact with, I feel and experience these kinds of emotions and sensations and feelings. And what that means is, rather than having one friend who then won't meet that criteria, I open up to every single human being in the planet, and maybe somebody out there will help and will feel and resemble those qualities that I was looking for. So just this idea of not attaching to any picture, but kind of setting an intention of putting it out there that I hope that I would experience and feel the way I did, again, the way I felt when I was last with Rebecca B and Natalie, like, rather than I only want to spend time with them, it's now, I just hope I have similar feelings with similar groups of women. I mean, it's not possible, you know, but it's interesting how we get attached to the one thing and then nothing else measures up to that thing. So the not attaching in the first place and kind of setting a hopeful intention for stuff that we might want ends up meaning that we attract similar things into our life. That was one of the things I wrote down, other than rest and ways of working. And then the other conversation that's been quite big for the four of us in the last few months in particular was, I don't know who spotted it, but we were talking about rest. And you know, in the community, we talk a lot about self-care and looking after ourselves, but we noticed a distinction across the four of us in terms of when we think we need to take time out as human beings, or as women, sometimes as working women, you know, there's quite a few criteria that we share, but we tend to look for or seek out what we had considered as self-care. So things like spending time with friends, or a walk in the park with that person, but actually it ends up being about their career, or, you know, a cup of coffee with that person, but then they end up telling us all of their stuff because we're very close friends with these people. And it's not to say that we don't value, love and enjoy those conversations, but we realized as a four that some of the ways we invest our time, we think is rest, but actually it's not what we then defined as one way. And what I mean by that is when you invest in time where only you receive the benefit of that time. So for example, a bath, that's one way because it's only me. Nobody can talk to me and tell me their stuff. It's just me. Or if I go for a massage, I don't need to do anything or say anything. I can just be and experience and understand that I am worthy of that attention and worthy of that time, etc. So the one way, so now if one of us is having a bad day, or I think one of us is tired, I'm the nosiest one, so I'll tend to message and be annoying. I might say, hi, have you done enough one-way stuff this week? Just have you invested any time this week where you're not giving at the same time as receiving, and that actually you're just being given to? Because there's brilliant people on the call. That was a distinction I'd never seen before. I was like, well, I'll just go and spend time with that group because I know they love me and I love them. But actually sometimes that involves a lot of my giving to the group. So sometimes as humans, this was a distinction from this year, and I'd never seen it that way before. I learned a lot from that one way. So now I regularly, sometimes I'm still learning that one, invest in the one way. Note to self, the one way.
Because we actually could see this like continuum of different things we were doing, and some felt like they were really supercharged in terms of how rested we felt afterwards, and others not so. And it's sort of like just actually having this on our radar has been really helpful to almost set some boundaries against the things that weren't so charged, I use that word, and kind of maybe selecting some of the stuff where we really left feeling more kind of nourished and personally cared for. And I just wanted to also comment what you were saying, Rachel, about this attachment, you know, the extent to which we're attached on things looking or becoming or going a certain way or direction. And I've also really seen lots about that this year, that you know, it's kind of all innocently done, but we can get fixed on how we think things ought to look or what would be great outcomes. But that's only coming from a kind of a very narrow viewpoint of what we know. It's based on existing knowledge, isn't it? It's not based on true potential and possibility. And it's also based on the current being lacking in some way. Like there's an underlying premise in any judgment, or should, that what is currently here is not good enough. And I've really seen that I don't think that's true. Like we're making it up, and that now is already full and abundant. And obviously there's things going on that might not seem desirable, but in truth, where we are now in this moment is probably exactly where we're meant to be, and it's abundant as it should be. And And I don't know, I think that really feels kind of true. And from that place, any kind of intention setting, because I'm not suggesting I won't still set intentions or desired kind of compass points for the future, because, you know, that's our gift and we like to dream. But like Rachel was saying, there's kind of a different flavor to it, in that less fixed, more open, less based on judgments, more on possibility, more based on that feeling, the feeling, as opposed to how something might visually look and seem. But I think there's something around when you see the standing point of where you are now as abundant in nature, the way you go out into the world just feels different, and there's less kind of fear, resistance, sense of lack going on, and just that is freeing. And because of the freer nature of that, it's almost like you can see possibilities, and possibilities that exist are more readily available to you. And I don't understand the mystery and the logic of various synchronicities that have happened since I've switched into this way of thinking. But combined with being more myself and seeing less lack in the present seems to be very, very, very helpful. And I'm excited to see what it brings in the coming year as well.
Doing a lot of letting go, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always, like, whenever we talk, we kind of laugh, because it's like, oh yeah, less to do. Always more stuff to put down, less stuff to do. And like, yeah, I mean, I wrote down the exact same thing. Nothing has to look the way we think it has to look. And I think there's, I don't know what it is in us human beings about really disliking uncertainty. And I kind of do it like that because I think it's quite a loaded word. I think uncertainty can kind of conjure up feelings of worry, stress, anxiety, whereas actually this not knowing, like, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow, really. Like, flipping that around and thinking, oh my god, that's exciting. It's like, why would we go to the cinema to go see a new film whilst knowing exactly how it's going to play out and how it's going to end? Like, where's the fun in that? And so, like, there's something around playfulness, I think, that this, like, with everything that's been going on over the last couple of years, and there have been various things going on for me which have felt quite overwhelming, and it's felt really heavy, and it's felt quite serious a lot of the time. But actually, what if we looked at it from a more playful, adventurous, exciting point of view? Because instead of kind of thinking, oh my god, what is going to happen next, it's like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? It's like, it's totally different. It's totally different energy. And I think if we're coming from that, with that different kind of energy, then the kind of the universe, whatever we want to call it, is going to match that. So it's like, right, catch that exciting ball, catch that one, and we're going to have all these exciting things that we are in the headspace to actually notice and act on, rather than everything feeling daunting and unfamiliar. And I think all that takes is a shift in angle in how we look at it. And that's not to say it's going to be like that all the time, but I wonder I wonder what impact that would have on what actually then unfolds in the unfolding that we're allowing. I think it would be quite different. Don't know, have to wait and see. How exciting.
I just turned the chat on, so we would love to hear from you. Anything that you've learned this year that you weren't expecting to, or any comments on this year and what you're seeing, or what you've resonated with you that we've shared so far. That would be great. Just what came into my mind then, B, when you were talking, was something that we spoke about the other day. In this kind of playing in the possibility, there's this great TV. I'm not a big TV watcher, but B and I have been watching this program called, I'm going to get it wrong, Your Home Made Perfect.
Yeah,
is that what it's called? Your Home Made Perfect. I'd not seen it before, and we sat down to watch a few episodes. Kind of got a bit hooked now, where the premise is that a couple have got a house that's no longer fit for purpose, in that they've outgrown it, or they've had ad hoc extensions and it doesn't work. And then two architects come in to vie for who's going to get to be selected to do the work. And it's fun, it's phenomenal, it's so creative. And then the main thing is that they put on VR goggles to be able to walk through the house before it's even been built, and their reactions are just sublime. It's wonderful. But for me, what came up was that this is just a perfect metaphor for life as well, that we are in our lives a bit blinkered by, well, this is the way it is, I can't see beyond that. So we're just bumping into things, our life, and just getting frustrated by it. And then these architects come in, or the universe, or whatever, we take the blinkers off. And there's just this vastness of possibility for our lives that we can then play in. I just think that that, to me anyway, that makes so much sense, when in this letting go, in this showing up as ourselves, in this just being more Natalie, being more ourselves, that then when obviously when we're rested as well, that we can then play in this arena of what's possible. And we ain't seen nothing yet.
I love it. And what, in a work sense, you will have all been in this conversation where, change is being suggested, and somebody somewhere will say, yeah, but that's the way it's always been done. And what's fascinating is that in an organization, that's a conversation you can have, and you can say, well, just because that's the way it's always been done doesn't mean that's the way we need to do it going forward. But then you come outside of the work context and you're in life, and we're still working towards and aiming towards fulfilling the pictures that we inherited that were drawn by dead people. And we're still going, oh, a family looks like this, a successful woman or man or couple or relationship or anything looks like this. Future that is future-proofed and secure, you need to have these things. And those were all designed by people who are not here living in this context today. In work, we can very easily have the conversation about, if it's not working, let's have a look at it and let's plan what to do. But outside of that, it seems like, well, we know we just need to stick with what we know. Otherwise we'll be, I can't remember which speaker we've been listening to. Is it betraying dead people? It could be Shafali, I'm not sure. But fascinating how we don't question those things. It's time to shift it all up, I think, move it all about.
And how exciting that we can design stuff from scratch. And we don't need permission to do that.
Or not design at all, and just, as you say, B, just just stop worrying about it, because it's going to happen anyway. Stuff will just start happening near you and around you and for you, and happen, next to you. You actually have very little say in the whole thing. But make your goals and have your plans. There's nothing, we're not saying don't do that, and we're all doing that, but it's the pictures need to dramatically change, or we just need to remind ourselves to not be attached to any picture, because we can't control that anyway. Amazing.
And the idea of being playful, like, I love that.
Yeah,
feels like really something to hold on to have an intention that it be playful. Like, you know, is that possible, and if so, what does that look like? And I think it is possible. We're just not used to it.
yeah.
So we've had some lovely comments here. Angie says, at the start of the call, I wrote self-care down. So rest is key to this, but really liked what Natalie said about just being herself, being her superpower. Love that. Showing up as ourselves, not easy to do. And I think it takes practice. I think it takes I think there are times that it's easier and times that we find it harder. But definitely worth exploring, I think.
When do you think it became easier to not be ourselves than it is to be ourselves?
Whenever productivity became popular.
I think it happens earlier and earlier. You've just got to look at, you know, a lot of the work that B and I do around eating disorders, you know, they're getting younger and younger, and a lot of that is around not being comfortable being themselves. Yeah. And yet, you know, one of the reasons that the reason I'm super excited to go out to the US is to see my baby granddaughter and to look into her eyes and to see the perfection in her, just untarnished by anything. And all she can do is be herself. That's all she knows what to do, is to be herself. And I kind of long to say and hope that she will never forget that. But I think that's conscious, you know, and not possible, I think, you know, if I'm honest, because we're bombarded by, oh, but you've got to behave like this, you've got to do that, you need this.
Yeah.
All of that.
And I wonder whether part of what maybe all four of us are seeing or starting to ask is, who is, by not being myself, who is that serving? And it's like, for what purpose? Because actually when we are ourselves, we're just better in in everything we do, in our interactions, in our kind of performance, in how we show up. And yet we feel like we're led to believe that it's safer and easier to do the opposite, even though all the evidence points to that not being true, which is it's just kind of nuts to think about it. But I think that question around, like, what's the purpose of this? What's the actual reason behind this behavior? Who is this in service of, really? To kind of get under the skin of why we actually find it hard. Because I think it's like taken as fact almost that being yourself is a really difficult thing. And so I guess maybe like starting to challenge that a little bit. And
you know what just popped into my mind, and it's something I shared with you guys, and I can't remember, it's from a book called Difficult Women. And I think that really just popped in my head, because it's like, maybe that's our fear, is that somebody out there will think that we are a difficult woman. And it's like, right, this but yes, let's be, you know. I'll maybe I'll share a link to it when we put the recording up, because it was just a stunning piece.
certainly what I've seen for me is that it, you know, hidden in the roots of it somewhere is not good enough thinking of some flavour. And it's all linked into us either seeking validation, praise, or approval. And that drives the behaviour. And then our habits, because we get into habits. So that's a big part of it as well, because we might not even realise it's not ourselves. Really, it might just feel a bit off. But we're in our habits. We've got some lovely other comments here. Oh, hang on, my chat scrolled. So I've learned that I am too hard on myself and that I can't do everything and that the list will never be complete. Totally true. I've also learned that personally I enjoy to make sure I have one day a weekend to spend just me, my husband and the dog. A big learn from lockdown and one I'm keen to keep. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like back to that learning what is, like setting some sacred boundaries around what actually is needed to rest and recharge. And what are we doing it all for anyway?
Yeah. Rebecca said life was a whirlwind and the lockdowns meant less dashing around and being busy, balancing doing things, jobs, and rest was easier. As life returned to normal, I found it hard to keep that balance. And this has been a good reminder. And I was thinking about this with the other three ladies. It seems like we, in our chats, in our WhatsApp group, one of us will be kind of talking about something where we're at, what we're learning, what we're seeing, or there'll just be a flavor of, I'm a bit tired, I need to rest. And, you know, maybe a year ago, even 2 years ago, the response would have been, what can you do? Let's send Rachel some ideas. Maybe she can think things through, a list of pros and cons to make the decision. And actually the feedback, no matter what any of us puts in there, it's like, okay, when can you rest? That's it. When can you lie down? When can you turn the light off and have 2 hours alone in your bedroom? When can you just close your eyes and give yourself 5 minutes peace? And that is, without a doubt, I think possibly the biggest thing we put in that chat now. And I remember just being at school recently and outside the playground, you always have that chat of what you're doing this weekend. And I'm like, absolutely nothing. And I can't wait. Like, we have zero plans. It's likely I don't even need to dress my children on the weekend. And I would even take them to the supermarket with their pajamas on. Like, my goal, a good weekend, is zero plans, or just seeing one group of friends who also, you know, turn up with the non-judgment and the mask off. Like, we're doing nothing because, my goodness, we just need to rest. It's so liberating just to have no plans.
And some lovely words here from Janet. I've definitely learned the importance of being true to myself and to recognize the signs of stress more quickly. Stress from work is often rooted in situations that are in conflict with my values and beliefs. It happened today after early signs of teeth grinding during last night. Spotting myself getting stressed meant that I took time out and did some meditating. It really helped calm me down and to get things into a better perspective. Talking to book club friends about it this evening had an even more powerful impact of putting it all in perspective. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good when we catch ourselves.
Yeah.
And say it out loud.
Yes, say it out loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the healing nature of a good group of friends where you can really be honest. I mean, I think, you know, everything that we're sharing, you know, it's through our conversations are a catalyst for all of this. It's beautiful.
I think one of the big things that also comes out of a lot of what we talk about is, I don't know about you, but when I hear the word trying to, I just need to try to do that, or I'm just trying to do this thing to start to get to move to. And as soon as I hear the word, no matter who I'm talking to and no matter what it's about, if not always, I mean, I can't 100% it, but it's usually the wrong thing. Because everything that we've learned this year is less trying and less effort. And it's just, oh God, yeah, put it down then. Maybe there's another way, or maybe there's something else we should be doing instead, in terms of where we invest our energy. The key, I think, across all four of us the whole year has been do less, don't attach, smile more, play more, and definitely drop all expectations and comparisons. And if it feels a bit more like you, then it's probably the right path. And if it feels uncomfortable, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a new path. So let's just drop the old pictures, because they weren't intended to be fit for purpose for life anyway. They weren't even ours. I'm not quite sure why they're still in all of our bags. We have 1 minute and I will wrap us up and send us all off. So wherever you're joining from, thank you for being with us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We're going into the holiday season, so we hope you have a great festive break, whatever your plans are. We have big plans for us and for you for next year, including retreats on the horizon, and, you know, all being well, in-person retreats possibly happening where we can just get together and do more of this in person and less in a box. And we are actually all 3D and human, and look forward to interacting with you in a slightly different way. But from the four of us, you're forever a joyful audience to spend time with, and we've very much enjoyed sharing what we did not expect to learn tonight. We hope to see you at the next event. Bye for now.